Right, hopefully you can now see the presentation and hear me. So just to reiterate what I said a few moments ago, not knowing that nobody could hear me, this WebEx is intended to sort of just cover off the email manager module or solution within InView, which deals with sort of the automated storage of emails within InView itself. What we'll cover off is, the benefit to a number of businesses who already use it and have it configured and are kind of using it at the moment. How it kind of works in the back end and how it works in the front end as well, because there's sort of two halves to it. So to kind of kick things off, let's just start with what Email Manager is. Essentially, it's a solution for sort of catching and keeping emails in the form of business records, because email as general is sort of one of those things which it's fairly chaotic. Just correspondence going in and out of the business and multiple trails with 4 or 5 different people CC'd, and then responses sent to one person and not sent to the others. So to kind of keep a track of email correspondence and conversations and trails can be pretty important to businesses just in general, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and all the discussions and information and data is all valid and relevant to anything that might be in discussion at that point. So as an example, accountants, as I sort of just briefly touched on, accountants sort of keep all emails to and from their clients, purely because they need to be able to audit any conversations that have been had between themselves and the clients, any documents that have been sent back and forth between themselves and those clients, and likewise with any documents that have been sent elsewhere that relate to that client. The other way that Email Manager sort of can be used to use emails as business records is sort of driving an orders process or another process within the business. In this example, I've used orders. So let's just say you've got an orders at my company, mybusiness.com, and anything that comes to that email address, you want that to then go into InView, and as a result of it going into InView, you want to kick off a workflow, which will then allow you to process that order and see it through to the end. Whether that means it comes in, the order's approved or rejected or queried, and then it goes through different departments and whatever. It's just that, you streamline your process purely by just taking an email rather than having to, print off the attachment, scan it in, have somebody else sign it, do whatever they need to do. This is just purely within the solution, and it's just kicked off straight away, and you can, drive your orders processing just off an email. As I mentioned in the sort of the introductory bit that I said, there are two parts to the Email Manager solution. The first part, or the first half, is the rules engine, which is sort of the back-end processing aspect of the Email Manager. It's server-side, so it runs on your InView server. You generally won't have any dealings with it, as an end user. Once it's configured, it's configured. It can be managed by your administrator, or if you've, depending on the method that you use to configure your rules and to configure Email Manager, you can just update a spreadsheet or a database, for example, which underpin the rules engine. So the rules engine as a whole, it captures emails from the Exchange server automatically and files them into InView without any involvement from yourself as an end user. In Outlook, if you're not using Email Manager, or even if you are, you've probably seen that there's an add-in in Outlook which has got the file and save button and the send to my in tray. With Email Manager, if you've got your rules configured correctly, you won't really have to send emails into InView manually very often, purely because they're processed on the server and in they go straight away. The second part of the solution is the assistant, or the Outlook add-in. Depending on who you speak to, there's like 2 or 3 different names for this. You've got the Outlook add-in, email assistant, or just the assistant. The names don't mean anything. It's all the same product and it does the same thing. Essentially, it's an Outlook add-in that just provides quick manual filing of emails, and also it provides feedback to users. So if you've sent an email in manually using the add-in, you'll see a little tick box or a category color that will appear that will indicate whether or not that email saved in InView. And likewise, if you have an email that's been processed automatically by the rules engine, the client-side assistant in Outlook will periodically scan your inbox and also do a cross-reference in InView for those emails that it scanned to determine if they're saved in InView or not. If they are, then you'll see a little category color pop up or a little tick box pop up in a column that will just give you a visual indication as to whether or not these emails are saved in InView. That is a pretty useful feature because nobody really wants to be saving duplicate emails and duplicate documents into InView for no reason. So being aware of what's in the system can certainly save you some time and definitely reduce the amount of duplicate documents and emails that go into the system. So a little bit of background on the rules engine, what it does and kind of the processes that it goes through. So if you look at point number 1 on the screen, the sources, the email capture polls. It can poll user mailboxes, group mailboxes, and journal mailboxes. We have one person who's saying they can't hear me. Can everybody still hear me? Okay. Right, bear with me. Right, we have one user who doesn't have any sound.
Yeah.
I'm just going to send him a quick message. Excuse me, guys. Right, sorry about that. I just had to send some instructions to one of the participants. Right, okay, so the rules engine. Item 1, as I was saying, we can capture or monitor user mailboxes, group mailboxes, or journal mailboxes on your Exchange server. Generally, it's almost always a journal mailbox that's configured. I mean, this is a little bit more technical for those of you who aren't in IT that have joined the call to kind of get a bit more information on it. But a journal mailbox essentially captures all email that's gone in and out of a business and sort of just stores it in a single mailbox. And we, InView, the email manager rules engine, will monitor that single journal mailbox and process emails based on the rules that have been configured, which will allow us to kind of put the emails into InView automatically and file them away. Number 2, the rules-based engine. It allows, as it says there, it allows us to process rules to evaluate if and how to file emails into InView. So the ability, it allows us to define these rules based on email properties. So if you have, for example, if you're doing orders and people who send you orders, or you may have a process already in place whereby you expect the customer's reference number to be put in the subject of an email, followed by any text, and then the order attached to it. You could configure a rule to look at the subject and match where the customer number is true. So if you've got a customer and their number is ABC001, you could have a spreadsheet with a list of all of your customer numbers in it and customer names and any relevant information, and you can configure Email Manager to look at that spreadsheet to say, right, here's the first email I'm checking, here's the subject, I found what looks like a code. Does it exist in my spreadsheet? Yes. File it into InView. If not, then do nothing with it, essentially. And it's not restricted to the subject either. You can create rules to look at the from address, the to address, whether or not it has attachments. You can look at the CC field. You can create rules even by looking at the body of the email. So if you're looking for certain words or certain tags within the body of the email itself, because the subject may not be in your control, or the to or the from may not be in your control. So you can look at the body of the email for, I don't know, the text, order number, or, the word order, for example, or even invoice or anything. It can there's no real restriction on what sort of words you can look for within the body, the subject, or the email addresses even. And you can configure a default action for emails that don't match a rule. So, as I said, that if an order number hasn't been matched, for example, you can have it do nothing, i.e., don't bring it into InView. Or if it hasn't matched, you can have it sent to someone's in tray or a group in tray for manual checking and manual filing. So in that sense, it's pretty flexible because it still allows you to capture emails, but if a rule isn't matched, it's up to a user to kind of apply some human knowledge and some human interaction at that point to determine whether or not those emails should actually be filed or whether they should just be deleted and discarded. So yeah, that's number 2. And there is some advanced functionality. I mentioned that you can configure a spreadsheet with a list of email addresses or client codes, order numbers, and things like that, and perform your lookup based on that spreadsheet. It's not restricted to spreadsheets. We can configure the rules engine to look at a third-party database. So if you're using a finance system, for example, and you've got customer codes or email addresses within that system, and you want to file emails in InView automatically based on the information that you've got in your finance system, we can configure the rules engine to look at that database for email addresses. So when the engine picks up an email and it says, right, the from address on the email is joeblogs@yahoo.com. Does that email address exist in my finance system? Yes, it does. Therefore, I need to file it using this client code with this information, and then that'll be it. It's filed in InView. We do offer that's a fairly generic sort of lookup that we do provide with the rules engine. We can sort of take it to a more bespoke level if required, but that's something that would need to be scoped and we need a sort of a more deeper discussion with yourselves and in InView. Number 3, the email itself and the attachment are both stored in InView. And as it says there, an optional workflow can be triggered and kicked off. The emails can be stored in MSG or EML format. EML is sort of the proprietary Microsoft format for emails. That's how they reside. That's the format that they exist in. On the Exchange server, it's Outlook that converts them to MSG, and we can store them in InView in either format. Number 4, the content and the metadata of the emails are completely indexed and they're completely searchable based on content and metadata. And the security itself is sort of dictated by the security imposed in InView, not sort of the email itself or the context of the email. So if they're stored in a folder that everybody's got access to, then everybody's going to be able to open those emails and view them. And number 5, emails are sort of marked as read, flagged on the Exchange server in the mailbox that we're monitoring to prevent sort of duplicates and things like that coming into InView. So once they're processed, they're marked as read, and they're not processed again unless manually done so. So that's kind of the rules engine in a little bit more detail, and it's kind of broken down into 5 sort of smaller sections, just so you can get a feel for the different processes that fall within it. The rules engine was the first part of the email manager. The second part, as I mentioned earlier, was the email assistant or the Outlook add-in. And this slide just kind of outlines the functionality. We support Outlook 2007, 2010 and 2013, 32-bit only for all versions. And as you can see from the screenshots, in 2010 and 2013 they look very similar. The add-in is within its own ribbon. In 2007 it just appears on the toolbar because in Outlook 2007 it doesn't have the ribbon, the menu bar at the top. So it kind of sticks out a little bit more, but in 2013 and 2010, the email assistant is more kind of integrated into the ribbon structure within Outlook. So just to cover off some of the buttons that are on the toolbar, on the assistant even, the first 2 buttons, Index and My In Tray, they're no different to the current Office add-in that you're probably used to seeing, except for just the way they're named. Index is the equivalent to File and Save. And My In Tray is the same as Send to In Tray on the existing Office add-in. Except in the email assistant, when you send it to your in tray, you don't see any progress bars. In the old Office add-in, you would see some progress bars to let you know that something's happening. With this one, when you send it to your in tray, it's all in the background. Everything happens in the background. The reason that's the case is because we didn't want to kind of interrupt your Outlook experience. So as soon as you hit My In Tray, it sends it to your in tray silently in the background, and then next time you check InView, it will be there. The Index button still works in the same way. You will see your progress indicators because you're indexing it, because you see the indicators because you're going to do it there and then. The other buttons that are there, User In Tray and Group In Tray, this allows you to send the email that's selected to a user in tray that a user within the system, as well as a group in tray within the system. So it could be that an email's come to you, however, you know that somebody else needs to deal with it. So rather than forward the email onto that person or onto that group, you can send it into InView. And then once it's in that person's in tray or that group's in tray, that person or a member of that group can then deal with it and file it. So again, you're reducing the number of copies of the email that are floating around your business, and you're also ensuring that it's gone into InView. Any action that's performed is completely audited. So if you need to track back what may have happened to an email, you can do so within the audit log. Favorite in trays and recent in trays, these are, I guess they kind of speak for themselves. Favorite in trays, if you find yourself sending emails, or if you're dealing with emails for certain people in the business, and you find yourself sending emails to those people's in trays very, very often, you can add them to your favorites, so that they just appear in the drop-down, within just a couple of clicks of the mouse. Recent in trays, it's just the last few in trays that you've been sending emails to, because if you've got a large number of users in your business, you don't really want to be going to user in tray and then scrolling through a list of users that you may want to send it to. If it's someone that you've been sending emails to, recently, then chances are it's going to be in your recent. The settings button just allows you to configure your settings. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that further on in the presentation. But as you can see, we've kind of enhanced the existing Office add-in just to give you a bit more to chew on, I guess, when you're dealing with emails. The email assistant options or settings, these are all configurable per user, so they're not centrally defined or locked down centrally. These are completely configurable. very flexible settings that can be tweaked to meet your needs, or how you would like it to behave. I won't go into all of them in much detail, but it allows you to configure sort of the scan period. So if you look at the screenshot there, that basically says that every 2 minutes it will scan your inbox or whichever folders you've got selected in batches of 50 emails to check to see if they're saved in InView or not. You can, in your notification settings down here, you can select whether or not you want an additional column in Outlook, which will just give you a little tick box. So if it's ticked, that means it's saved in InView. If it's unticked, it means it's not saved in InView. Or you can use categories, and these category colors are whatever Outlook defines as default colors. There are quite a few options, but with many users, they tend to use categories for other things, so columns tend to come into play at that point. You can apply a date limit, so you can say that I'm not interested in knowing if any emails are older than, well, in the screenshot, the 60 days. So, if you're not interested in knowing whether or not emails older than 60 days are saved in InView, then you wouldn't need to increase that. If you only want to know whether the last 30 days worth of emails are saved in InView, then you would reduce that to 30. You can increase it all the way up to, I believe, 120 days. It's entirely up to you as to whether or not you'd like to do that. But it would take a lot of time for it to kind of process, 3 months worth of emails. And that's about it for the options. Just a sort of a quick cover off. The next one is mailboxes. So if you've got more than one mailbox associated to your email profile, you can scan those to determine whether or not emails are saved in InView or not. And you can also choose folders within your Outlook. By default, the inbox is always selected. So as soon as it's installed, the inbox, it will start scanning the inbox pretty much straight away. If you wanted to scan your sent items or any other subfolders within your inbox, then it's just a case of going into the settings, clicking mailboxes, and ticking whichever folder you wanted to scan. The tab in the middle, favorite and recent in trays, that just allows you to add or delete favorites and clear out your recents. There's very little to show on that one. So I mentioned that the feedback in Outlook, if you're using a column, you will see a little tick box appear in that column, and also if you're using categories, it will tell you, whether or not it's saved in InView. So this slide basically just gives you a visual aid to help you understand what I was talking about. Excuse me. So the top screenshot, as you can see, there's 4 emails there, all with ticks. That means they're already in InView. If there were any that didn't have a tick, that means they weren't saved in InView. As you can see, the column header says saved in InView. In the settings, that column name can be changed, and it can be whatever you like. And then the screenshot down at the bottom, where we've got the categories, you can see that it's got a color, and there's a bit of text as well saved in InView. And again, that text can be changed to whatever you want it to in the options. So if I just go back here, so where it says index label, it doesn't have to be saved in InView. It can be edited, and whatever is in that label box is whatever will appear in the column heading and the category name. So yeah, as you can see, it just gives you a visual indication of whether or not the emails are in InView. I'm not sure why there's a blank slide there, but so this next slide, this is just an example to show you what the emails look like in InView, in Outlook. So you can see that in the background there's a category which says saved in InView, but if you double click on the email to open it, to view it, and to read it, you'll see that there's a bar that appears at the top that just lets you know that it's saved in InView. And that bar is the same color as your category. On this screenshot it's purple, but obviously it relates to whatever color that's been selected. This next screenshot, again, as you can see from this slide, Chris Starling sent an email in. So the next one is just me searching in InView for Starling, and you can see that it's brought back everything that relates to Starling. And the one that's highlighted is the one that was saved in InView. So just a few points on things that you need to know. As I mentioned earlier, all emails and their attachments are saved in InView and indexed in InView, completely searchable via the metadata and content. The security of the saved documents is defined by InView, not by the to or the CC part of the email. So, Email Manager, the rules engine doesn't know that an email from, joeblogs@yahoo.com is a private email, and therefore only certain people need to see it, unless it's saved in an area in InView which is private and can only be accessed by a certain select few of people. So the security is dictated by InView, not by the context of the email or the content of the email even. A couple of things Email Manager isn't. One being a spam filter. That's not what we are. It's not what it's intended to be used for. Hopefully you'll have your own spam filter configured somewhere at some stage prior to emails hitting your Exchange server. The second point there is an email archive tool. I say that because we want people to see emails as as I mentioned on my first couple of slides, as business records that are important to the business and relate to the business, rather than just sort of a dumping ground for emails. There has to be some context to what you're saving and what you're putting into InView, so you can apply it at a later stage if needed. But yeah, it's not to say you can't use it as a dumping ground. It's just not a very good way of using the functionality and using the solution to its fullest. So a little bit of technical information. I mentioned earlier that we support Outlook 2007, 2010, and 2013. 32-bit only. Microsoft Exchange 2003 onwards. We do support other POP and IMAP servers, but that would be subject to a proof of concept, purely because no POP or third-party POP or IMAP provider is exactly the same, and they all have their own little quirks. So therefore, the caveat there is that a proof of concept would be required. We fully support SSL and TLS security, and the last point there is cached exchange mode is fully supported as well. And that's about it. Have we got any questions? If we have, just send them to me in the little chat box, and while I wait for the questions to hopefully filter in, I'll do you a quick demo of some live sample emails. So before the WebEx, we sent out an email requesting people to email in to an Office 365 account, and throughout the WebEx, hopefully people have emailed in. If not, if you're at a laptop or at a machine, would you mind just sending an email to the email address that we sent out? And those emails, they would sort of get automatically processed and pushed into my InView system. So if I just have a quick look at my mailbox. So we've had two here, one from Jane and one from Anoop. What I'll probably do is I'll show you our internal system as well, because we have hundreds and thousands of emails coming in. And they all get filed in InView. That'll probably be a better example. But so as you can see, these two emails came in at just before 10 this morning. If I look in my InView, let's just refresh that. Yeah, we can see that here's the email from Anoop, and here's the email from Jane. So if we just open one of them up, it's just a blank email that's gone to that email address. And the way I configured this was for it to find a match based on the email address that was in a spreadsheet. So if I show you the spreadsheet, this is a list of participants on the WebEx. So you can see that the email address is here, the sector and the company. So I'm just interested in these first three columns here. So for Anoop's email, for example, the one at the bottom, I configured Email Manager to say, right, where the from address is Anoop, I want it filed in InView, and I want to know the sector and the company. So if we go to Anoop's email here, we can see that it came from Anoop to me. The subject was webinar email, and the company name is Gallagher Bassett, and the sector is insurance. So I pulled all that information off the spreadsheet by just using one bit of information, which was the email address. I've used the email address, but any bit of metadata or information on the emails itself can be used to file these emails away. So if you've got, like I said earlier, if you've got an orders-driven process and you've got order numbers or customer numbers in the subject, then you can drive that automatic filing based on the unique ID, as it were, in the subject. If I just log into our internal system, and I can kind of just show you. Doesn't seem to like my login. Yeah, so I'll be asked a question by Stuart. So if you delete it from Outlook, it will be saved in InView because we're processing emails from the Exchange server. If you're not in cached Exchange mode, then chances are it'll probably delete it off the Exchange server. But if the emails have been deleted from your Outlook, chances are they're probably in InView. I can't seem to get logged into my into the live system at the moment for some odd reason. There we go. Just having a bit of a mess. Yeah, we've had a question from Matt as well asking, when setting up Email Manager, is it possible to be trained on how to configure so we can amend and add rules without having to ask InView? Yeah, I mean, normally if you've purchased the Email Manager solution, generally, if you've also requested training, you will be trained on how to administer it and how to configure rules. Setting up rules and things like that are fairly straightforward. I'll sort of go over some rules that we've already got configured for our internal system, but I'll try not to go into too much detail because this is sort of an overview sort of thing rather than a training WebEx. Stuart, the question that you've asked about making saved emails private, that's dictated by InView. So what you would have to do there is if you only wanted a certain number of users to be able to if you only wanted a certain number of users to be able to see those emails or access those emails once they're in InView, you would have to set up your folder security within InView to kind of pin that down. If you wanted them saved in a specific location, then you would do so by configuring your rules to file them into a separate area rather than sort of the generic area that other emails may be going into. Because the security isn't at document level, it's at the folder level. So if you wanted to keep some emails private, then it would have to be sent to a different folder and security imposed at the folder level. Yeah, no different to normal rules. We've had a question from someone who's asking about purchasing Email Manager. Yeah, if you'd like to know more about Email Manager and the solution and about purchasing even, then you can either email info@inview.net or speak to your account manager. If you don't know who your account manager is, then just send us an email and we'll put you in touch. But yeah, this is our internal system. So if I search for one of our customers, these are, oh hello, I might not. I wonder if I've been given access to the folder. Oh, here we go. So yeah, so we can see that, yeah, these are emails. So we're capturing some emails that come to support from certain customers. So, oh yeah, I should have searched for Golden Charter with a space in the name. But yeah, you can see we've got other customers here. So if we do MERJS, these are, you know, emails that have come in to InView automatically that have been filed. And this is in our live system. So, you know, we're pulling off the to, the from, the customer name. And what we're doing here is similar to what I did on my demo system here, whereby we're looking at a database or a spreadsheet where the to or the from matches an entry in that spreadsheet. It will then file it away using the customer information that's contained within that spreadsheet. And yeah, we're saving the subject of the email and things like that. Let's just search for another one. So yeah, 713 emails that have been coming in and out of the business that relate to this customer, Waddesdon Manor. And these aren't emails that are restricted to support. These are emails from anybody in the organisation that emails have been sent to and from that relate to Waddesdon Manor. And likewise with MERJS, you can pin it down to say that, okay, I only want to save emails from specific people within the business. So I could say any email to or from Stuart Evans from Waddesdon, I want to save in folder A. Everything else I want to save in folder B. Or I don't want to save them at all. I only want emails that are going to and from Stuart. And again, the rules are pretty flexible. I'll just show you one of the rules that we've got configured here. So yeah, so this one's just calling a lookup DLL, which then looks at a database for those emails. But if I go back to my demo system, I've got an email address rule, a very simple one, which I've configured. So my first rule here, if the from contains stuart.e@inview365.onmicrosoft.com, and I've configured mine to send it to my in tray. So earlier in the WebEx, I said that, you know, if you've got emails that are of sort of higher importance and may need to be dealt with manually, or that you don't know what you need to do with them yet, and therefore need to be dealt with manually or filed away manually, you can configure rules to meet meet that criteria. So I've said here where an email is from Stuart@365, send it to my in tray. So I'm actually logged into Stuart's 365 account here. And if I compose a new email, if I can find the new email, so if I send it to my InView account, just give it some random text and hit send. And then what should happen, because it's from Stuart Evans, it will get filed into InView automatically. It will get sent to my in tray automatically even. And then I can do with it, do what I want with it, file it away, read it, and delete it if I don't think it's important. And then that's about it. It may take a minute or so for it to process and come through. But yeah, and then once it comes through, then I'll be able to. It might just take a minute, but while we wait, if anybody else has got any other questions, all of the emails are audited, so you can query the audit log to determine how the emails got into InView, whether they were sent in manually by a user or whether they came in automatically via the rules engine. Just looking at the questions on screen to see if there's any that I've missed. Nope. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. We've had someone just comment about space. I'm assuming that's space on the InView server with regards to storing the emails. It's difficult to say how much space it will take up because you may have some emails with one attachment that's like 20 KB, or you may have emails that are coming in with much larger attachments. So it's difficult for me to say how much space will be required because I don't yet know your requirements and your long-term requirements of that. But with regards to space on your Exchange server, we can kind of tidy up after ourselves once we've processed an email or a batch of emails, because there's an option on the rules config tab that allows us to delete emails on success. So once the emails have come into InView successfully, we can just get rid of them off the Exchange server. So we're kind of cleaning up after ourselves in that respect. But with regards to storage space once they're in InView, it's difficult for me to say, I'm afraid. I can try and find out, get some rough metrics for you, relating to emails of a certain size and quantity of emails of a certain size and how much space that may or may not take up on your server. I'll issue the update. If you send me your email address, I can email you the response to that. There was another question. Licensing. The email manager, because it's in two parts, the Outlook add-in is licensed per user, whereas the rules engine is just a single license on the server. I hope that covers everything else. No problem, Stuart. Right, so I think we're pretty much there with this WebEx. As I said, if you need any more information or need some documentation on Email Manager or would like to discuss costs, licensing, purchasing, anything with your account manager, then please email info@inview.net. I have recorded this WebEx and we will publish out a download link or a link where you can view it and share it with any other relevant people within your business, should they seem interested after you rave about it. But yeah, that should be it for me. So thank you for your time this morning. Apologies for the glitch with the audio at the start of the WebEx. And hopefully we'll see you dial in for our next WebEx. I'm not sure when it'll be, but I think we're looking at covering off administration and security. It will probably be useful for your InView administrator to kind of sit in on that, because security has always been a bit of a weird one in InView. So yeah, we'll issue out an email with more information closer to the time, but I think we'll be doing one on administration and security. So yeah, so thanks again for your time this morning, guys. Have a good day, and I'll hopefully speak to you guys soon. But yeah, if you've got any questions or queries, email info@inview.net.